Good day, good afternoon, and good morning to some. Thank you for attending the last session of our event, Sustainable and Inclusive Solutions for Air Quality and Climate Change. I'm Dang Espita Casanova, Program Manager of Cleaner Asia, and I will be your host for this session on mobilizing innovative finance for integrated solutions, opportunities in a post pandemic world. So, just run through a few reminders before we start. So the session video and chat will be recorded, and the Q&A box and the chat box are open for all your inquiries, your comments, and your insights. So please feel free to use those features. And also, interpretation function is available. You just have to click the headset button at the bottom right hand of your screen and then unmute the original audio to hear the translation. To contextualize our session within the realm of air quality and climate action, we will be playing a recorded presentation by Mr. Christopher Godlove on the importance of air quality and climate financing. Chris is an urban sustainability professional with leadership and global program management experience in materials management, climate change, municipal energy management, urban services, and environmental protection. He helped Cleaner Asia in developing the guidance framework on air quality financing. Now, here is the presentation of Mr. Christopher Godlove.
For that introduction. I'm very pleased to be here. As was mentioned, my name is Chris Godlove. I'm a consultant working with air quality management and climate based in Brussels, Belgium. I'm very pleased to be here today as a part of this discussion focused on sustainable and inclusive solutions for air quality and climate. Pleased to be addressing some of the questions around how we finance air quality management and the links to co-benefits, especially with respect to addressing questions of equity, focused on gender, and other marginalized populations. I'd like to first thank Clean Air Asia for the invitation. Pleased to be addressing a very distinguished group of practitioners from around Asia, from cities, from civil society, and also pleased to be part of this distinguished group of experts. I'd like to start off by discussing a little bit of the context and providing some context for the presentations that will follow. And to do that, I will first talk a little bit about a very important resource that's available to all of you, something that I had the opportunity to be involved with as part of the Clean Air Asia group. This is the guidance framework, which is introduction to basic financing concepts to support air quality management. It highlights some practical approaches and hopefully will serve as a tool for driving engagement with partners, both municipal, private, and international. And you have a link to this as well. We'll start the discussion today with talking a little bit about some of the costs. And these are essentially why we're interested in pushing forward our ambition on reducing pollution and air pollution in our cities. OECD places the cost of global levels of PM 2.5 at around 21 billion in 2015, rising to 176 billion in 2060. Again, by that same date, 2060, lost working days are expected to reach 3.7 billion days annually. The WHO estimates 7 million deaths worldwide annually, 2/3 of those deaths occurring in Asia. And so this is a very serious situation that we face ourselves with, and obviously one that has many implications with respect to co-benefits and the opportunity to improve livelihoods, health, well-being of populations in our cities. Why cities? The role of cities, many reasons. Cities are hubs. They're economic, financial, cultural hubs. Cities can take action. We see this in the example of Indian cities adapting Euro 4 equivalent standards. Cities have managed services and have managerial and budgetary oversight over services. So they have the opportunity to impact air quality as those services impact on air quality. And city leaders also have the autonomy and the decision-making authority to make change. And I think that's perhaps what's most important. At the same time, there are competing demands for limited resources. Cities in the past have relied on budgetary transfers from national government levels. This has changed with the devolution of budgetary and managerial authority to the city level, which is kind of a good news, bad news story, but we'll talk about that. Cities have very high urbanization, rates of urbanization, and this has impacted their ability to deliver services. At the same time, cities are investing in areas of infrastructure that have relationships with air quality, investments in energy and energy efficiency, transport, and waste management, water and wastewater. All of these things, there are interventions that allow us to have an impact on air quality within our cities. We'll start off by addressing the first of the 4 objectives around which we'll have framed our discussion. And the first here is really what I think of as a foundational aspect of AQM in cities, mobilizing resources for clean air action planning. And this is, as a foundational component, deals with things like emissions monitoring, inventory development, health impact assessments, communications, and serves as the kind of the primary input to the analysis and process of clean air action planning development. So we've listed out and have included within our guide some of the key considerations important for addressing this objective, things such as ensuring and understanding that initial purchase price of equipment is not reflective of the full cost, understanding that these investments are long-term investments that require human resources and operational and maintenance resources over time, as well as the fact that this is not the budgetary responsibility of any one single agency, but rather it requires the action of multiple agencies. So it's not simply health or environment, but also infrastructure, finance departments, and so forth. Objective 2 deals with the mainstreaming of AQM finance within across city services. And so, as was mentioned earlier, cities are an investor in a range of infrastructure. They're linked to a variety of services. This spans everything from water, the provision of water, to waste services, to transport, to health, to education. All of these areas offer us opportunities to intervene in a way that reduce energy use, that reduce overall emissions, that are impacting the quality of our air. With this devolutionary trend came increased responsibility at the level of cities. Cities globally have developed mechanisms to recover costs for the provision of these services. That's not to say that these cost recovery mechanisms are full cost recovery, but certainly there are revenue streams that provide some margin of opportunity for investments in improvements in efficiency and reduced energy consumption, reduced other forms of action that can be important when considering how we're going to achieve the clean air action planning objectives. Objective 3 deals with the establishment of financing mechanisms and economic instruments to support AQM, and this includes many things that cities will perhaps already be involved in, These are things like vehicle inspection fees, source test emissions, renewal fees, even civil settlements. All of the things that the types of revenue streams that cities should look at first to begin to assess how they're going to pay for these investments in new or improved infrastructure. And finally, with Objective 4, we're really talking about the scale up of action, and particularly with cities that already have clean air action plans in place. These cities are well positioned to move forward with in this area of described in Objective 4. It's an opportunity to leverage some of the other goals that cities will have related to climate, related to transport. These are larger investments, often requiring project finance and engagement with financial partners, whether they're multilaterals, bilaterals, or private banks. And at the same time, there are multiple mechanisms to access these financial resources. Some of the main categories of financial instruments, these include own source revenues, the things like we talked about in an earlier slide, the fees, the tax revenue stream. Debt and equity is another area for engagement with private or even public financial partners. Transfers have been mentioned, as well as alternative sources. And in this slide, we're simply attempting to outline to get kind of the different ways that financing can work within any given city. Each city is different. The idea here is to get you thinking about the opportunities that you have at your disposal for leveraging your own unique situation. This has the city budget at the very center, the inflows from the national budget, economic instruments, external sources of finance if those exist. And on the left side of the slide are presented the different city services that can be leveraged to make improvements, as well as some of the specific AQM and climate-focused investments. The initial phases of project preparation, this includes establishing linkages with the development process and CAP objectives, engagement with stakeholders, anticipating complexity and legal and regulatory issues, and then finally identifying champions to help get you over the finish line to actual inauguration of an activity. And finally, financial readiness. This is something that's been talked about a lot in climate circles. It involves ensuring that you're prepared from the political, regulatory, and legal standpoints, that you've thought about the revenue streams you'll use to access, to make investments, you've done the financial modeling, and you have a strong, transparent bidding process in place. And with that, I'll conclude. Look forward to one day being face-to-face and talking about some of these ideas with you in person. In the meantime, please take my contact information and reach out to me with any questions that you may have. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Chris. And indeed, we hope to be able to work with our partners from the cities face to face very soon. And now, since our session aims to support cities in identifying available financing resources to support air quality and climate actions, it would also be useful to understand or dig deep into some of the challenges being encountered by cities in the region. And to share with us a result of a poll that we deployed on this topic, I'd like to call on Precious Benjamin, our Capacity Development Officer at Cleaner Asia. Precious, handing over to you.
Thank you so much, Dang. Just sharing my screen. Okay, here. Okay, so we just like to share a poll that we launched since the start of our event last Tuesday. So in connection with this session, we asked, what air quality or climate action do cities find it most difficult to obtain financing on? And the top answers or responses that we got, the actions that were most challenging in terms of finding finance on were firstly the interventions, which are expected to reduce emissions. So, for example, shifting or introduction of new technologies, and then followed by data collection and analysis to inform solutions. For example, using data for baselining or estimating future benefits. And finally, actions related to engaging stakeholders or policymakers. So we hope through the presentation of our speakers and also some discussions today, we'll start thinking about how these challenges can be addressed. So back to you, Dang.
Thank you so much, Precious, and very much thank you as well to those who have participated in the poll. And now, I think we are ready to jump into a more substantive discussion on this topic. So, for the past 3 days, ever since Tuesday, we've heard about the co-innovation of solutions, the co-creation of actions and programs across different sectors of government and society. And I think we are ready to hear more about the concrete steps that Southeast Asian cities can take to improve how we can really operationalize and roll out the solutions. And further, how to improve capacity to improve air quality and climate financing. And with this, I would like to call on Dr. Esther Mogiorosi. Esther is the head of innovative finance of ICLE World Secretariat. She has extensive experience in managing and leading various sustainability oriented projects in different national, international organizations, and providing assistance as well and analytical support to matters relative to climate finance. Esther has a background in economics and business administration. Esther, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dang, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. For me, it's certainly morning, being based in Bonn, Germany. As Dang already said, working at the ICLE World Secretariat, managing the innovative finance team there, working with local and regional governments globally, helping them with their project preparation and accessing finance for their climate projects. I have a presentation which I believe will be shared. Yes, we can already go to the next slide, please. So just to put it in the context, understanding when reading the program, obviously COVID and the pandemic is influencing our life at all levels, all stages, and as it looks like it will continue like this in the coming years as well. And although it is a huge challenge, also as we see, particularly for the local and the regional governments who are in the front line of the action, but then now they had to reprioritize things, and their tax and fee revenues, which are so important, also declined due to the pandemic and feeding finance to certain areas. Still, we see the pandemic also as an opportunity and also as a high call, highlighting the importance of air quality, highlighting the importance of green spaces, and also the opportunity which it can bring with the green recovery investments, rethinking the investment priorities and invest more in high air quality and climate projects. This is certainly a challenge. Of course, there was already a huge climate finance gap, as we see globally. Just meeting the Paris Agreement goals, there would need like 93 trillion US dollars. And as we see at the moment, at least 1 trillion US dollar is missing each year. So there is a huge challenge, but also an opportunity. And we also see from the side of the finances, and also if you look at now the COP outcomes, that there are more and more pledges and more recognition that we have to do something here together. The next slide, please. So looking more a bit to the resources, Christoph also mentioned it briefly in his presentation. So basically, when we look at the financing sources for climate projects, there are two big groups. You can either look public, private, and of course the mixture of those two. And here these boxes certainly don't mean that the private finance is smaller than the public. We will see it that it's actually even the other way around. It's just there are so many different private finance actors and sources that it would be different to categorize and list them here. So regarding the public finance sources, of course, there are international and national and local finance sources. From the international ones, there are a huge group of the international financial institutions. You certainly know many of them. For example, the multilateral development banks also belong here, like the World Bank or the Asian Development Bank, just to give a few examples. The climate funds are the funds being the operating entities of the UNFCCC, so the UN Climate Convention. And these are the Green Climate Fund, the Adaptation Fund, and the Green Environmental Facility, the GEF. And then there are several multi-bilateral finance sources, and as I said, also at national, regional, and local level. So zooming into this, the next slide, please. Here, if you can see, in 2017 and 2018, there were 384 billion US dollar invested in climate finance, in urban climate finance. As you see, it's quite difficult to track. Data collection is a real challenge. But based on the data, what is tracked, as you can see, the private finance was even more than the public finance. From the private finance, what we see, most of it was private investment, like buying electric vehicles or doing a solar rooftop on your own house. Regarding the public finance sources, what we see is that still governments are the one playing a critical role here. Government here, I mean also local and national, so all levels of governments. And the international financing, public financing, it's still something to be more explored. But there, as we are all well aware, unfortunately, this is also due to the barriers and the challenges and the complexity to access those funds. So the good news is, if we look at the next slide, is so if we look here at the next slide, the geographical distribution of the climate financing in 2017 and 18, we can see that actually East Asia and the Pacific is leading. That's where most of the finance was channeled, with a leading role here of China and also the transport sector. Most of the investments happened in the transport sector. The next slide, please. So just to refer to the poll, which Precious already shared with you the results. So what you listed here, the results of this poll are not too surprising. This is what we see globally as well, not only here in your region, that these are indeed the areas the most difficult to obtain finance to. And in the next part of my presentation, I don't have a magic recipe how to overcome those difficulties and access finance, but I hope I can give you at least some ideas where to start and also some inspirations. So we can move to the next slide. So here you will deep dive much more into this in the exercise part of this session. But I wanted to show you this finance decision tree and guidance what we at ICLEI developed for local and regional governments. This is a very simplified way to find the most suitable financing instrument for your project. We tried to do everything just answering yes and no questions. And this is an interactive platform, basically. So starting with, of course, with the first big category, exploring what do you have available at your own local level, what kind of own-source financing is available for you. If not, then of course you have to look at external financing, which is as particularly speaking about large-scale infrastructure project, this is mostly the case. But then, of course, you still have to check how much you want to involve the private sector, if it's possible at all to involve for you the private sector, if the necessary regulatory requirements, the enabling environment is in place, because we see in many countries that, yes, they would be very much interesting to do a public-private partnership, but the regulations basically just don't allow it. Or, of course, maybe you are very much interested to issue a green bond, but the fiscal autonomy and the credit worthiness level is just not at the stage which would be required. So here we try to ask the most basic questions, really. So this is just a very first idea to navigate you to the potential tool. And then on the next slide, please. Once you click on one of the instruments you find interesting, then for each tool we give a short description, so the definition, the advantages, the disadvantages, and also some links and case studies that you can check out and be inspired. The next slide, please. And one potential support you can also look at, and this is obviously a promotion of our work as well. So at ICLAI, we manage the Transformative Actions Program, the so-called TAP, which is a pipeline and the project preparation facility as well. As you can see at the moment, we have 70 projects in the pipeline, big part also from Asia already, with an investment potential of 2.6 billion euro. So what we do with the TAP, we collect the applications from all over the world, and the annual call is at the moment still open till Christmas, so till the 20th of December. And here you can see also the website link. So what we do with these projects, we screen them based on their transformative impact potential, and then we give recommendations for them how to improve their project idea, their project concept to reach the level of bankability. And we also try to connect the projects which we see that there is a big transformative impact potential, to connect with other project preparation facilities, with technical experts, with financial experts, that they can grow and be mature projects. The next slide, please. So we work on a lot of tools and do a lot of capacity building for local governments in the frame of TAP. And you, of course, I encourage you to visit our website. But what I want to maybe highlight here is this, the climate finance opportunities, which is a catalog of opportunities. So here we collected the different financing institutions, partners, funds, initiatives, project preparation facilities, which can be relevant for urban climate projects. So this is quite a long catalog. You can scroll through and then just check whatever is the most suitable for your project idea. The next slide, please. Yeah, and here on my last slide, I collected some ideas. I would encourage you to check out. So there is this Green Cities Directory, which was developed by the Cities Climate Finance Leadership Alliance, the so-called CCFLA. And this is a huge catalog again but this time focusing more on project preparation facilities. So these offer technical assistance. Different types for technical studies, for the data collection, for example, that you were also listing as one of the major areas you would need support for. Then if your project is more mature already, then there is the recently launched subnational climate fund by R20. They also offer technical assistance, but then also do equity investment in your project. And what I see very feasible to this topic is the GAP Fund, which is managed by the European Investment Bank and the World Bank. And ICLEI is also a partner. So the GAP Fund, they offer technical assistance for early stage project preparation. So again, this can be perfect for technical studies, early stage technical studies, also supporting you with your data collection, with inventories. And they are quite fast. The application process is relatively easy, and usually they move quite fast. After 2-3 months, the work can even start, as we see. And then what we see a lot regarding air quality projects, and when the projects are also not too large scale, but more small scale projects, is that government agencies. So, for example, the Swedish government agency, the so-called SIDA, you might know. With them, we had a lot of air quality projects in Africa. They were really a major source funder of this type of projects. Also, embassies are happy usually to engage when the project is a smaller scale. And obviously, to access this international financing, the best way is really to, what we see, establish very good contacts and collaboration with the focal points of the different accredited entities. And just the very last thought maybe, or tip, what we also in Africa worked quite well, but I totally believe it's replicable, is that we worked a lot with universities and research centers on air quality projects. Here, the University of Gothenburg, for example, the University of Birmingham were very active. So also universities, research centers, I think, can be good sources for trainings, capacity building. With that, I would like to thank your attention, and I'm here for questions. I hope, some of the ideas were useful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Esther. And we have invited our participants to key in their questions in their Q&A box. And if not, if they would send us their questions directly, we will definitely relay this to you. And so now that we have heard from our speakers, Chris and Esther, it would be good to apply what we have learned into the context of our own respective cities through an exercise. And with this, I would like to call on Mr. Kenneth Bernard Hizon of ICLEI Southeast Asia. Kenneth is an environmental planner with experience working on climate change, local planning, and sustainable development. Kenneth, handing over to you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Dang, and thank you for the presentation, Sir Chris and Dr. Esther. And before we move forward to a very quick exercise for this day, I would like to emphasize what our speaker said earlier, that the use and the financing of green recovery approaches addresses both air quality and climate change issues, as well as the issues that we are facing now during the pandemic. So we will be having now a quick exercise to map out your PPAs or programs, projects, and activities related to air quality and climate change. So let me share my screen now, and I think the Secretariat will also share the link to the Excel file in the chat box. Okay, all right. And now we have here the exercise sheet for this afternoon. May I invite our participants to go click the link and be here with us. Uh, okay, I'm seeing people now who is now inside the workbook. I see 8 other people here. All right, so let's start. Before we do it, uh, let's see if who are the cities and organizations that are with us. You can start by answering here on the first column. So, for example, me, I am in San Pablo City. So I'll just type San Pablo City in the Philippines. If you're with an organization and not directly linked with the city or working with the city, please type your organization as well. So we may see who are in the room right now. And while we're doing that, we can now list your priority clean air and climate actions. So these are programs, projects, or activities that are related in reducing our vulnerabilities against the climate change and reducing issues related to air quality. These are examples of this are the switch to renewable energy, the use of energy efficiency technologies, urban gardening and agriculture, and of course the use of public transportation. The more use of public transportation as well as the electric vehicles. So let's type it down now. I see one representative from San Pedro Laguna. All right. So you may start putting your PPAs now there. Okay. One from Legazpi City, Philippines. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them now on the chat if you're having a difficulty answering. All right. Okay, kind. So, for example, I'll write, but this is just an example PPA in my city. But please do put your prioritized PPAs and even those that are currently ongoing. So, for example, I'll put the use of more green spaces in the city. So, kindly answer this now and then we will move forward. Okay, I see one example conversion of three-wheelers to electric. I think this is to electric vehicle. Now, thank you. I see more guests coming in, so please write it down. I see one from Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. All right. Kindly take your time in putting your answers. And we have one from the tourism sector. May we know from which country are you? You may type it as well. All right. Now, while we're waiting for the other answers to come in, for those who have already included what priority clean air and climate actions that they have, they can now put what are the potential resources to fund these priority programs, projects, and activities. As discussed earlier by Esther, there are different private and public finance options that you may use in implementing these PPAs. So, to help you and to guide you answer, you may just click the button uh, at the side of the cell, and you can select what resources you're going to use or you are planning to use if you're just going to start doing it. So now I see that one project from the city of Manila will be using local taxes or their own finances or own revenue. Then from San Pedro, Laguna, they will be using public, private, and financing. Okay, all right. I see now one from the Legazpi City. They're going to target about their carbon footprint. The PPA is on aggressive tree growing in their south and northern villages. One is for the city of Pasig, the use of e-vehicles for logistics or operations, and they're looking for grants, or if it's not yet being granted. All right. Now let's move on to the next column. Let's look on how does this priority program, project or activity aligns with your COVID-19 measure. So you can just click again on the drop down menu and click whether it's more linked to rescue, response, recovery, or long term resilience. And here we have a description or additional remarks. If you want to share with us whether the project is ongoing or it's just going to be started in the next fiscal year, or it's just on the project development phase, please tell us so we may see. And if you have questions about how do climate finance and other financing options fund this PPAs, particularly on the tab as discussed by Esther. I think you can ask her as well later, or you may chat on our Q&A portion. Okay, I'm seeing more more answers. Okay, so for Ho Chi Minh City is to improve the public transport and non-motorized transport mode using their own revenue and local taxes, and is related to the long-term resilience against the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, thank you so much for your answers. Okay, this one from, I think this is from San Pedro. Yes, the project is ongoing but needs more resources. Okay, can you add more, San Pedro, if you need resources from the public sector or a grant, or if you're going to use a loan? And if there is any cities right now or organizations who wants to share with us more about their PPAs, we can give you a minute or two. Just type on the chat box now and I will call you so that we can now give you the floor to share a bit about your PPAs. Mhm. All right. For the city of Pasig, I think it's also the same. I believe I also saw some of our participants are from the academic sector. If you're working with cities or municipalities on their climate change and air quality PPAs, you may also answer here. Please feel free. Okay, let me see the chat. Okay, I think I saw a comment here. I'm watching Kenneth. I think this is from Baguio City. Um, does anyone from the Baguio City wants to share more about their PPAs? I think the secretariat can give you the mic, can give you mic and video options. So now San Pedro also specified that they will be needing more resources from the public sector and also the support from the private sector. I think it's good to see now that a lot of our cities here in the Southeast Asian region really knows what they would need to do in accomplishing their goals for better air quality and resilience against climate change, and that one of the bottleneck is really on the financing. So I see another more information dissemination from Legazpi City. And for the city of Pasig is the establishment of air quality monitoring to better understand air quality uh, air quality status, also using their own revenue.
Kenneth, I think we have a representative from Manila City on stage, and then a
All right,
representative also from Baguio City will be coming on stage.
all right, ma'am. Okay, if the representative from Manila City already have the video and audio option. Please go ahead. You may share your PPAs with us.
So, good morning from here. Yeah, I'm Allen in Vincent Piadarin from DPS Manila. So, here's our list of PPAs. So, I wrote down rehabilitation of plazas and parks in the city of Manila. So, here in city of Manila, we have three plazas as of now that we have been rehabilitated. The Cartilla ng Katipunan, the Mehan Garden, and the Hidden Garden in Loton in Manila. So another is we have another project which is the rehabilitation of Arroceros Forest Park, and we have also other greening projects here in Manila like the vertical gardening at Barangay 634, tree planting of nilads at Baseco and Intramuros. And also we have a installation of air quality sensors in 6 locations in the city of Manila in partnership with 3M Philippines and Clean Air Asia. Also, we have air quality monitoring sensor installed in Mehan Garden, which is in partnership with DNR. DNR. Then we also promote using of bike and using of public transportation and also using of e-vehicles. That's all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Sir Alan. Just a quick question on that, Sir Alan, before you go.
Okay, sir.
Do the City of Manila for these areas already have their own routes for the public transportation?
Uh,
Like the bikes or for walking?
yes, sir. In some parts of Manila, we have bike lanes, but it was yes, sir. In bike, we have in some parts of the city of Manila.
All right. Thank you so much, Sir Alan, and also emphasizing that the partnership that the City of Manila is undertaking with different sectors with the national government and even partner organizations such as the Clean Air Asia. So let's move forward with the sharing from our representative from Baguio City. Uh, is she already connected? Okay. While we're waiting, so I think we can look more on some of the answers here.
Yeah, sorry, Kenneth. So I think our representative from Baguio is having challenges with the platform, so we can just move ahead.
Okay, thank you so much, Dang. I'll just read a bit more from our participants. I see an update, one from Bogor City in Indonesia. The improvement in public transportation, gas fueled and e-bus, improvement in waste management, and the addition of more green spaces. So I think I'm seeing a lot of the PPAs in the Southeast Asian region focused on the urban areas, particularly on the transport sector and the open spaces. Another from Legazpi City, GHG emission inventory. All right. And I think there are still some others who are typing in their answers. But in the interest of time, I think this is it for the exercise. Please feel to all the cities, please feel free to continue answering while the program is ongoing so that we may have additional information on what Southeast Asian cities are working on about their um, air quality and climate change PPAs. Thank you so much, and back to you, Miss Dang.
Thank you so much, Kenneth. And as Kenneth mentioned, we will keep this portal open for your insights and inputs. And also, we will disseminate this to a broader range of city respondents after the event. So now we would go to a short Q&A to be facilitated by my colleague Dana Babella. We saw several questions in the chat box, and so yeah, Dana, I think you can proceed with the the facilitation of the Q&A. Dana?
Okay, thank you, Dang. So, at the start of the session, we've requested our audience to type in questions in the Q&A box. And participants were also invited to upvote questions with which you would like to ask the panelists. I would now like to call on our speakers from ICLEI to answer the questions from the Q&A. So we have this, Dr. Esther Mogirosi, Mr. Kenneth Bernard Hizon, and I would also like to invite Ms. Pamela Kabakungan, Manager of the Low Emission Development Pathway of ICLEI Southeast Asia, to join our speakers in addressing the questions from the audience. So to introduce Ms. Pam, she handles the conceptualization and implementation of climate change mitigation projects, and she also supports the local governments in the region in utilizing the CDP ICLEI Unified Reporting Platform, a reporting tool for local climate actions being managed by ICLEI and the Carbon Disclosure Project. She handles the capacity building training for cities, municipalities, particularly those which are focused on climate change, science, and greenhouse gases emissions. Okay, so I think our panelists are already on stage. So I will be now going to Q&A. So we have one question for Dr. Esther. So what are the main challenges for climate finance in developing countries, especially in the Southeast Asian region?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for the question. And although the question is for me, I also invite my colleagues from the region to answer that. So what we see with the projects, the major difficulty is the capacity, for sure, what we see at the local governments regarding both the technical capacity, both the lack of financial experts to work on project concepts. So what we see is that local governments very much depend on external experts on project conceptualization, which they often cannot afford. Then the elections many times override our plans, particularly when we think about hard infrastructure projects. Usually these are long-term investments, sometimes longer than one election period. So, and then when there are changes in the political system, then it's quite difficult to keep the project in our pipeline and the interest. This is something what we see can work quite well if there is a very strong stakeholder engagement. If the project is so much embedded in the community priorities, not a guarantee, but certainly can help the project to survive. But what we see a lot as a barrier is that the local governments, they don't have direct access for funds, particularly to international funds. It's always the national government's approval which is needed for that. And that's why I also suggested in my presentation that establish very good contacts with your national government, establish very good contacts with the accredited entities of the international financial institutions, of the climate funds, because this can help you also to access those funds. So maybe also my regional office colleagues would like to complement. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dr. Esther. So maybe we'd like to hear from Ms. Pam if she
Uh,
has her insights on the same question. So I'll just repeat the question for the benefit of everyone who are listening in. So what are the main challenges for climate finance in developing countries, especially in the Southeast Asian region?
yes, Miss Dina. So I think Esther already highlighted a lot of those points that are also applicable for Southeast Asian cities that we've worked with. But I think from my side, I would also like to emphasize and build on from the results of the poll earlier, because it was also mentioned that there has been challenges from local governments in terms of data requirements, and as presented by Esther earlier, there are a lot of options to tap on climate finance. But the lack of adequate and relevant data on air quality and climate data to establish these connections of the co-benefits of climate action and air quality improvement interventions is also a challenge that prevents or hinders local governments to tap on these opportunities. So if they cannot understand these linkages, the projects being developed are designed in silo and therefore would miss the opportunity of maximizing the available municipal budget to allocated for air quality and climate projects and programs. So, as shared by Esther's presentation earlier, there are tools available that will also assist local governments on how they can air quality and climate data to further enhance their capacity to access this available financing. And as mentioned, also that sometimes local governments do not have the technical capacity or expertise to do such. And I think it would also be beneficial to also partner with local government organizations, CSOs, and universities. I think in our audience here today, we have a lot of academe representatives. It would be beneficial for local governments to to establish foster partnership with them to address these gaps and enhance and maximize these opportunities to access available resources, which I think would continue to increase coming from our the COP26 negotiations that there is still a call for states to also commit on their financing for this. So, yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you for that, Miss Pam. I think we have time for just one more question. So I'll field this question to Sir Kenneth. So for Sir Kenneth, what are existing solutions if problems in climate finance in developing countries arise?
Oh, thank you so much for the question, Miss Diana. Just to add also from what Esther and Pam said, I think some of the challenges in climate finance that arise, especially at the local level, at our cities, particularly one example is that our cities work on a lot of things. So, for example, one officer at the city work on different things. So when they apply for climate financing and the review comes back to them, they don't have that much time to work on the proposal. So I think one of the solutions is really putting more technical assistance or even resources, manpower and resources at the local level, so they can work on what they do and also focus on the application for climate finance. I will also give the floor for Esther and Pam if they wish to add. Thank you.
Hi, uh, go ahead if they have any last messages before we wrap up with our Q&A. I think there's
I
none. So
think
I,
it was said, but
uh,
yeah, I don't know if my presentation will be shared, but if yes, then I certainly encourage you to check out the links, particularly what I collected on the last slide. And of course, check out the tab. Hopefully, we can also help with you on that front.
okay, so thank you to our audience for participating and for our panelists for their responses. So I would now hand over to Dang to close the session. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Dana, and of course to our colleagues from ICLE for really providing good guidance to the cities and the participants that we have in the room. And that actually wraps up our event, Sustainable and Inclusive Solutions for Air Quality and Climate Change. It has been a very exciting and fully packed 3 days on different aspects of course, creating solutions through co-innovation, co-development, and of course, with emphasis on the sectors that we want to really hear from most. So these are the women, the youth, the marginalized sectors of our society. So moving forward, I think I would be speaking on behalf of our co-organizers and partners that we will strive to bring these solutions and spaces for everyone to collaborate on moving forward. And with that, I'd also like to, I'm excited to share that in come February 2022, we will be organizing a technology fair for Southeast Asian cities to really go deep into the technological solutions for air quality and climate. And we hope to see you there. So once again, thank you. And this is Dang Espita Casanova, formally closing the event. Thank you and have a nice day and have a nice week, rest of the week to everyone. Bye.